Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast, brought to you by Java Press Coffee Company. My name is Raj Jana, and I'm the Chief Brewing Officer here at Java Press, where we help people make daily happiness a priority using the coffee we love. I interview people from all walks of life to discuss happiness, success, fulfillment, and ways to infuse it all into daily life. I want to dissect different thought processes and turn them into powerful insights that empower you to stay grounded and make daily happiness and fulfillment a reality. So thanks for joining me today. Now, let's get to grinding. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj Jana, and if you can't tell just by the sound in my voice, I'm extremely excited to introduce today's guest, who is a relatively new friend of mine. We met a couple months ago at an amazing competition that he hosted, and I was there, and I got to meet Damon John actually through this wonderful gentleman. And he has got a wealth of information and a resume that speaks for itself. But before I dive into that, I just wanted to introduce him, Mr. Bryan Miles. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Raj. How are you doing? Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure. So I'm going to give a quick bio on Bryan, and then I'll let him sort of explain what he does, who he is, and everything he's accomplished to date. But to give you a little bit of background on Bryan, Bryan is a CEO and a co-founder of a company called Belay. He co-founded it with his wife, Shannon. Belay is a US-based virtual solutions company where they provide virtual assistants, bookkeeping, copywriting, webmaster services for leaders and different types of organizations so that we can stop working in the trenches and start working on our businesses. And Bryan has achieved a lot to date. And one of the most impressive things that I know and I've realized about Bryan and his company is that he is a fully virtual company with over 600 team members, all working from home. And he is now a brand new author of a wonderful book, which we will highlight towards the end of the episode, and that goes over a lot of the stuff we'll be covering in this podcast. And so, Bryan, like I said, man, please introduce yourself, and then we'll lead the conversation from there.
Right on. Well, thank you, Raj, for the opportunity. I'm amazed sitting here 7 years into our business that I get the opportunity to do things like this, and I'm paid actually to share with people about our company. I mean, I'm a blessed man all the way around. What we've been able to accomplish, I know is not normal. We've grown from, we jumped out of small business really quick and kind of jumped into becoming a medium-sized organization. A lot of it in part because we weren't saddled by an office. We didn't have an actual physical office, and we were more agile and more flexible because of it. And that's part of our story over the course of 7 years as we built our virtual services business. So I think it's a joy to sit here and be able to talk to a great guy like you who's killing it in business and doing awesome, and get to share, about our story and our folks and how hard we work to serve other people.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. I wanted to dive in before we started talking about health, wealth, happiness, and all in between. Why is having a virtual, just from your experience, why is having a virtual culture important to you, and what kind of growth do you think having a virtual culture over a conventional office? What kind of growth do you think that has on the employees and yourself on your own life, just from a happiness standpoint?
Well, I can speak to 60 some odd employees here in Metro Atlanta that all work from home, and then all the other great people that represent our business as virtual assistants, as bookkeepers, writers, and webmasters, that the lion's share of them seem to be happier when they have workplace flexibility. So when we use the word virtual culture, it's really a remote, web-based workplace environment where people can work from home, leverage technology. And what I find is when people work from home and they have some autonomy in their day-to-day, they're genuinely more happy. Because they can contribute to more than just someone else's work. They can contribute to their family, to the needs of their family, and kind of teeter-totter that through the course of a day. And when a person feels like they're contributing not at work, but also at home, we found that they seemingly are more happy. And happy employees equal more engaged employees. They're connected to the mission of the organization. And for me personally, as an employer, I don't want my employees just to come here because they get a paycheck or benefits. I want them here because they want to be here and they're happy and they're connected to the mission of our business. And I think that if you look at the other larger organizations that are out there, kind of even bigger than us, that are all virtual, they've got an incredible group of employees that are very, very happy. And I think big business is catching on. There's in my book, I do talk about, there's a very large corporation that basically told 75% of its workforce that within 4 years, everybody will be working from home. And they're not small. They've like 5,600 employees at the time. And this is happening. So I would tell anybody that's listening, that's an owner of an organization that's of size, or even really startups, that the wave of what's next for the workplace is going remote. It's going virtual. And more and more employees are going to demand it.
I think you kind of hit it on the head. Having happier employees allows them to deliver happier results in your business for your customers. I mean, we're a completely virtual organization.
Well done.
And I've seen that myself. I worked in corporate America for a while, and I knew that I didn't want that. And so I knew what I didn't want, and I'm here now. But I completely agree with you, and it does create an amazing opportunity for today's workspace. Why is for yourself though? So walk me through your daily routine. You obviously work from home.
Yeah.
How does your day begin? What does your morning look like?
Well, I'm likely up between 6 and 7 every day. I start off reflecting on kind of where I need to go that day, or anything that I need to kind of course correct from the day before. I will generally either read a book of some sort, or I'll journal for a season of time. I do journal. And then I have an app that I kind of use that holds me accountable, called the Strides app. And it just is kind of like, hey, I did this yesterday. Is this on par with what I'm trying to accomplish as a man, as a leader, as a husband, as a dad? And then my kids are generally up by 7. So I'm helping with my wife, Shannon. We're helping get them out the door between 7 and 8 o'clock. And then I don't rush right into work. At least I do my very best. I try and hold that off for about an hour, and I try and just engage with my wife that I co-founded the business with. We still have a lot to do day to day in the business, and we'll just kind of talk. Unless there's something pressing, we got to run to a meeting or something like that. But then my day working from home, I generally jump into email. I try and batch my email. That's a relatively new practice for me. Batching email has been a wonderful thing. So I just really kind of work through my email, and I am fortunate to have a great assistant that can help me do that. So she serves as air traffic control over my inbox for all day long.
I like that, air traffic control.
Yeah. So I'm able to batch my email. Now there are times when there's just something that's urgent. I got to knock it out in the middle of the day. That's okay. I'm not so rigid with it. I'll review my calendar for the day, and then I typically will be doing what I should be doing as a CEO of this company, which is opening doors for our company and networking and connecting with folks. And I have a bit of a right now I'm in the midst of a couple things in terms of research. So I'm digging deep into some areas. So I carve out time for that. I am a huge believer of naps. So generally after lunch, I'll take about a 30-minute nap or less. I just need my mind to reboot. And when I was younger, I used to be embarrassed by that, but now I just need it. It helps me sustain the rest of my day. I've got mental clarity from that. I know the rhythm of my body, and I wake up just ready to go. And I know some people can't take naps. It wrecks them for the rest of the day. For me, it's just, it's a way for me to kind of reset the day. And my mind always seems to go. So this gives me a chance just to kind of press pause in my mind. And then I'll wrap up with a few calls or whatever for the rest of the day before the kids get home. And then, have a great evening with the family. That's a typical work day for me.
It sounds structured. Is it something that you follow religiously, or is it something that kind of goes up and down as tasks happen? Or are there any parts of the day that are like non-negotiables that are happening no matter what?
Mm-hmm. I do carve out about an hour block in the afternoon that encompasses my nap. And then that's just, you can't schedule anything in that time. and I protect that like the dickens. And my assistant, I've worked with her now for 5 years. She totally knows that's sacred time. You don't mess with that. And then here's the other thing too, like this is a really practical thing, but I figured this out even before we started our company, is that I'm one person. I am one leader. So I have one calendar and it's all got to fit. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a CEO of a business. I'm on several boards. I'm a friend. I'm a brother. I'm many things to many people, and it's all got to fit on one calendar. So I have a highly color-coded calendar that my assistant Paige just sees. So like if things are in green, that's personal. Red's travel, podcast interviews or phone calls, that's yellow. We just, that way I have got a snapshot of my day and making sure that I'm, being the person I need to be, but also that organization sounds hard, but it's not. It actually gives me incredible freedom.
I love that. So I actually might steal that from you.
Please.
So you color code your calendar based on activities you're doing, and that allows you to quickly assess whether you're doing the things you need to do to be the person you want to be.
That's right. And it's more than, my identity is not wrapped up in me just being the CEO of this company. I'm the CEO of this company for a season of time. And I see that as a stewardship issue. I'm stewarding this business for as long as I can as the co-founder and CEO with it. But I won't be one day. And that's okay. So right now I've got to steward that well. And the same time that I have influence with my kids right now at a very pivotal age. And I always want to have a meaningful relationship with my wife. And I need to do things personally like work out. So there's all these investments I've got to make in others and in me to be the person who I am. So I just make sure that I'm very intentional with my calendar. And once you kind of get going in it and you get a rhythm going, first month, 2 months in, it becomes old hat because it's very easy to kind of manage your schedule. And especially if you have an assistant, he's probably begging you to get more organized with your schedule anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know a lot of our listeners, and sometimes including myself, we make sacrifices in certain parts of our days, whether it be like personal time or a workout or, something when we're pushed against the wall. What are your thoughts on how do you combat that? How do you make time for yourself and make yourself a priority when you seemingly have so many responsibilities on your plate?
Well, the truth is I do have a lot of responsibility on my plate, but I also don't see those things for me as a person as a luxury. I see them as a necessity. I see them as something that must be done in the same way I've got to grow my business and top line revenue and produce net profit. It's my health, my mental health are all parts of who I am and the sum of who I am as an individual and my contribution to this world. So I've got to look after those things as well.
I love that. So you're essentially keeping the well full so that you can continue giving.
You have to. Otherwise, I have friends that are, really wonderful leaders that will hit burnout. And man, burnout when handled wrong is nasty. And it changes lives and it hurts people. And so, I really hate it when I see a leader that's kind of, tanked out in terms of, something like that happening when they could have avoided it just by getting a little bit more organized and being a little bit more disciplined about their calendar.
Is this something that came naturally to you, or did you have some mistakes along the way that allowed you to realize what's really important to you?
Well, I had the gift of being a salesperson. And when you're in sales, and I was in sales for a long time before we started our company. In sales, you have to be organized because you're jumping on an airplane. You're going to be in someone's boardroom. It's all very structured. Down to getting the rental car and racing to the meeting and getting back home so you can see your family. And I just decided early on as a young man that I've got to own my calendar. And I tell this to my team all the time. You either own your calendar or your calendar owns you. And I'm just not going to let my calendar own me. I'm going to own it. And I decided that a long time ago that I was going to master this thing. And man, I'm telling you, I get so much done because I'm just organized with my calendar. I am a highly productive individual because I'm just organized with my schedule. And I'm not perfect. Like, we have things, that get derailed in your calendar and you got to, shift and adjust and stuff like that. But for the most part, you'll see a very productive person in me just because I've worked at it really long with my assistant myself to be very organized with the calendar. And don't miss this. That makes me happy. organization makes me happy. I think the world either goes towards order or chaos, and happiness for me is having things in order. And I just, that for me brings happiness to me when I know where things are and I know how to, to go find something, or I know what my schedule looks like. That produces happiness in me.
Yeah. Structure sets you free.
I think so.
No, that's amazing. I love that. I love that so much. It sounds like, so every day you spend time with your wife, with your kids, and you make time for yourself. You seem like somebody who's like oozing with either gratitude or appreciation. So would you mind kind of expanding on, how does gratitude play a part in your day-to-day? How does that play a part in your business and your vision?
Yeah.
I mean, how does it sort of come together with gratitude?
It's one of my favorite topics. I mentor young guys, and we spend time camping out on this subject of gratitude. Back in 2007, I had a mentor. I was part of a mentoring group where this guy is an amazing guy. His name was Reggie Campbell. Reggie beat us into submission with understanding what gratitude meant as a young man, as a young leader. And he said something that's always stayed with me. He said that basically gratitude is the only lasting motivator of change. And I think it's dead on. Gratitude is something, when you're postured this way with a heart of gratitude, you can sustain much of anything. And it gives you that motivating force within to do the things you need to do because you're grateful. You're grateful for what maybe God's done for you. You're grateful for maybe how your spouse has treated you. You're grateful for the health of your children. You're grateful for the success of your business. You're grateful maybe that you're born in this country. I mean, there's so many things trivial that you could be grateful for. And those things, when you realize that, they become an excellent motivator. And so I've carried that forward, and so much so that as we started our company, and Shannon and I, my wife, talked about building an organization that we wanted to be part of, we wanted to make sure that one of our core values is gratitude. And so you'll look and see on our website, you can go see our core values, and one of those is being grateful, having gratitude. And we express that in many ways in our business.
I love that. That's so awesome, man. I'm a huge fan of, I've always felt like gratitude is that kind of like that secret power that you can call to whenever things aren't going well or when things are going well.
Yeah.
And it's like this thing that just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on in your life. And I love that you've made it such an integral part of every aspect in your life. So besides the nap and gratitude, what are a couple of other daily non-negotiables for you?
Well, I do like a good glass of wine. So I don't know that it's daily. It might be. I just, I enjoy relaxing, and I enjoy wine. I'm kind of I think one day, if this business goes well, and it seems to be, Lord willing, trending in that direction, I'd love to have a winery.
There you go.
Kind of, but I'd say in terms of negotiables, I do pray daily. I'm thankful for a creator that gave me this opportunity, and I beg him for wisdom. And not just this, I don't beg just for wisdom. I also beg for the courage to act when I get that wisdom. And so I do each day. It's kind of a non-negotiable. You'll find me not just at one time, but kind of throughout the course of a day. I will have found myself in prayer at one point or another, or in meditation, however you want to look at that. But in a reflective state that acknowledges that I'm no one. I'm just a guy that was created to do something of meaning.
How often do you reflect on just what you're doing? Do you reflect daily, weekly?
Daily. And that happens in my journal. A lot of times I've had friends that they'll journal, and they'll be like a stream of consciousness. And for me, I just can't journal like that. I'm not that kind of journaler. Rather, what I do is at the top of each, new page, I'll ask myself a question, and then I'll just try and answer that question. Maybe I had an argument with an employee or something like that, and maybe I'll be thinking about that argument. And so I'll ask myself, what's going on within me that I'm arguing with this person in my head? And I'll wrestle that out on a sheet of paper. Or I might ask, hey, what am I grateful for today? In this next season ahead, are the goals that I've set out scary enough? So I'm always asking myself questions, and I do that on a daily basis. That's my
Oh,
reflective time.
I like that a lot. And so you make it a consistent part of your day, and it's fueled by whatever you're feeling, which takes away kind of like I've always felt like journaling for me, I do it, and then I'll step back when I force myself to do it. But if it's something that comes from like whatever I'm feeling and not really forced, I just feel like I would stick with it more. So is that kind of like resonating with you? Like, is it just
For
something
sure.
that you do because it makes you feel good every day? And
I do it for me. I'm introverted, so I do it for me because I get energy that way. I get energy when I'm away from people, and so this brings me energy.
mm,
But I also do it because I can be very scattered in my thoughts, and so it kind of brings me to a focal point with my mind to think about something that's important. And it's just become a very rewarding part of my life. I've now got 3 journals that sit in a safe in my house that one day my kids are going to read, and they're going to see how I wrestled with certain things, and I was a human being, and I screwed up and I made mistakes, and they're going to read that one day and go, man, my dad was a human. Like look, check that out. He's struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with, and I see it as a gift, and I'm very brutally honest in it. I don't hold anything back, I think that it's a great outlet for me as a person. And here's the thing, like when you hear this, I bet some of you are probably rolling your eyes. You're probably like, man, how much time does this dude have on his hands? Right? This takes no more than 5-10 minutes a day.
yeah,
And for me, man, to pray and to think about those types of things, that's just kind of, I literally just got out of an exercise. I went on a run before this podcast interview, and on the run I was praying. So like I find it in the middle of my day. I find those moments, and you can incorporate those things into your life as well. And I certainly encourage you to.
you're very intentional with your time. How did you cultivate that practice of being intentional with time? I'm sure it happened is there a practice you do to just bring yourself back to realizing that, like this is stuff I need to make, this is time I need to do. Like I find myself getting lost in a lot of the weeds.
Yeah.
And I mean, I try to bring myself back to center of intention and being there, but I do slip. So do you have any tips for maybe some of our listeners who might be in the same place?
I think the reason why I'm so intentional with my time, and the reason why for a long time I have been intentional, is because I lost my dad. He died of cancer when he was 56. And I just got to this place where I'm like, man, we just don't have the time that we think.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to make a dent in this world, I have only a certain amount of time. I have the same amount of time as you. I have the same amount of time as anybody listening to this. I have the same amount of time as President Trump or Hillary Clinton or President Obama or Richard Branson. Like I've got the same amount of time. And so rather than watch that time be wasted away or being lost in the weeds or scattered, I'd rather just be intentional about it. And I also believe that I'm here for a greater purpose. And so when I kind of walk through my day like that, time becomes a bit more intentional. Now, don't get me wrong. I still like to goof off on the weekends and have fun at night. And, I'm addicted to the show Survivor. I have been forever, like I have my things too, but in my day, I'm really intentional. I think a lot of it stems from the fact that a great man that I love very much died too early. And I think that's always kind of had a huge impression on me.
When did your father pass?
In 1999.
Okay.
I was 24, and it was a horrific way to pass away. He had lung cancer, and I don't wish that on any family. It's a terrible thing. And he was a manager for Michael's, which is an arts and crafts store.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him just work crazy hours. And retail has a tendency to do that. You kind of work people to death in retail, and I saw him work really hard. And he really kind of provided for our family, which I'm extremely grateful. But I saw, and I had conversations with him numerous times, and when he got sick, and his regret for how he would do things different. But one thing he didn't regret was having a meaningful relationship with his son, his daughter, and his wife. And he was certainly intentional with that, though he had to provide and work kind of some crazy hours in retail. But I just, that's always had an impression on me that I've got to manage my time well.
How do you think, you said you were 24 when that happened, correct?
Yeah.
When did you start Belay?
In 2010.
2010.
I was 35 at the time.
Did your experience did that experience help you create the culture you have today, or how did it help you sort of craft like the life you've created to date? Did the changes happen immediately, or were they stuff that kind of like just sat in the back of your mind as you continued doing what you were doing?
I think it was probably in my mid-30s where I kind of woke up to my responsibility as a human and as a leader. Not that I was irresponsible in my early 30s or late 20s. In fact, I was married when I was 22 to Shannon, and we just celebrated our 20th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And you met Shannon, so I outpunted my coverage.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate to be married to her. But I think, with my dad dying when I was a young man, I've been intentional to find mentors. And here's a little bit of advice. Most mentors aren't looking for you. You got to go looking for them, and you've got to get in their damage path, and you've got to create a plan for how you would like to see them coach you. If you've got this big head, like you think that someone's just going to approach you and want to pour themselves onto you, you're nuts. You kind of got to get in their damage path and ask them questions. And I was just intentional to do that. And along the way, in the absence of having a really great dad, I found some fantastic mentors that are my friends today, and some have become advisors to my business. And they've given me that wisdom that's been there, and the wisdom that they've given me has really, a lot of it's been through their pain and through their mistakes. And so I've just tried to observe those things and carry those things into my life, my personal life, into our business, and just be a good student of other people's mistakes. And then, when I mentor guys, and every other year I mentor 4 guys in their mid-20s. And it's a year-long commitment. They sign a covenant with me. Like, it's a big deal. Like, it's like getting a baby MBA with me. But when I do that, though, I share with them everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, in the hopes that they'll take that and become a better person and leader as a result of it. And so now I've graduated 2 groups of guys, and it's awesome. It's a wonderful thing to have mentored guys in a very intentional way.
What a wonderful way of giving back, Bryan. I love that. I love that. I'm very inspired by you as a human being.
No, thank you.
Beyond what you've achieved with the company, and now with the new book, which I want to start talking about. But I think that what you've created with your company is 100% a reflection of who you are as an individual and your wife.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm very, very grateful to be having this conversation with you. So
likewise,
your new book, Virtual Culture book. Tell me more about it. Tell me what it covers. Tell me what the premise of the book is, and just pitch me on it, man. I'd love to. I've already bought it, so I'm knee deep in the trenches, but would love to give our audience a bit of some insight on everything the book entails.
Yeah. So virtual culture it's a couple things. It's our playbook for how we started our company. And basically started without an office and never intended to ever have an office, and realizing that you could actually create a legitimate company of size and of result without having an office. And so it's our journey. It's our playbook. It's not the playbook, but it's our playbook for how we created an organization of meaning where people actually like to work here. I jokingly say I've ruined all the people that have worked here, because now that they are here, they're ruined. They can't find another place like it. And then I've done my job. But there's a lot of just blocking and tackling things in the book that I share in terms of how we deal with conflict, some things that we think are important when you're building a virtual company. I also go through examples of organizations that have done this, and so it's not just us, and show the bravery of how others have done this and why they've done that. I touch on some myths connected to the virtual realm, and then I also I point to resources that are on a website that we've created specific for the book, where there's calculators and some tools and free resources that they can go get if they're evaluating their organization becoming more of a virtual company or all remote. But it's our story coupled with tools and resources, and other stories that kind of equal that. And then then I end with kind of like where I think the workplace is heading in the next 20 years, next 20, 30 years. I think that there's just a lot of things that are affected when you say that more and more people are going to go work from home for various reasons. And then I failed to mention earlier, like in the beginning of the book, I kind of talk about why we got here, or how we got here in terms of what workplaces look like today. Why do we go to an office? Why are people in a cubicle? I touch on that, and a lot of that's just simply because we're a holdout from the industrial age. And when you've got grandma who can FaceTime with her grandkids, and that can build a meaningful connection with them from 4 states apart, then you can't really have any excuse for why that can't work in a virtual work standpoint. And that's my book. And so I put that the way we work doesn't work anymore. And it's my manifesto. It's kind of like my line in the sand that says, I think that employers and business owners need to wake up to this reality, because once a person has started working off their back deck, they're ruined for life. They're not going to come back into an office. They're just not.
I think that's one of the biggest fears of potential employers. And I did want to ask you, I mean, you're disrupting a pretty old mindset of having to go into work, right? How do you, like, what are some things you do to cultivate a mindset that allows you to continue like achieving this goal or moving towards it when it seems so vast and seems pretty crazy? For a lot of people, I mean, until I met you, I didn't think I could have 600 people working virtually. I thought that I would have to call it in one day and pick a physical location.
Yep.
And you're changing that for me. So, what are some of your influences and practices that allow you to continue dreaming?
I think that there's this notion or this dogma that's out there that says if I can't control you if I can't see you. And I just don't think that that's the currency for how people want to operate in the future. I think that people want to operate from a basis of trust. And so when we started our business, I decided that we were going to trust our people. Our default was to trust. And that became the currency. And so you can go a lot further with trust versus control. And we trust people to work from home and do their job. We're really clear about what their job is. We talk about what it looks like when they're winning in their job. But then as an adult, we trust them. And then you wrap around compensation and benefits and connectivity and their ability to have workplace flexibility and autonomy. And then they do something of meaning. Like I said, you're going to develop a workforce that wants to be there. And that's what we've tried to do at Belay. But it's the yin and yang of control versus trust. And I just have zero desire to control people. I'd rather people want to do something because they feel trusted to do that versus I'm dictating or I'm controlling them to do that.
Were you always that way? Like even in the beginning when you started your company?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and before that, in sales, you got to trust that salespeople are going to go get that quota. That they're going to do the job that's expected of them, and you can support them and help them. But at the end of the day, you got to trust them to produce. You got to verify the results, make sure they're doing the things day in and day out to get the result you're looking for. And so I've just kind of was raised that way, that you've got to, and my sales teams produced. The sales teams I led, they produced because I trusted them. And I know plenty of other like sales managers or VPs of sales out there. And when they go forward and they say, look, I trust you. I trust you to go get quota or even exceed it. That puts the right motivating things in a person to go get it done. And it's true, whether they're building a car for you or, shipping coffee or making sales calls. When they feel trusted, look out. It's an amazing person that you want on your team versus when they feel controlled or they're just there for a paycheck.
I love that. I can't, you've dropped so many little nuggets in this 145-minute interview that this is amazing. Wow. Yeah. Like I said, Bryan, I'm beyond just inspired and very grateful that you are here and you are who you are.
Well, thank you.
You set a very inspiring example for myself, and I know our listeners to make time for the things that are important to us. And some of the things you shared, especially with the calendar. I mean, I'm like messaging my assistant right now, like, please, let's start this now. And so, I wanted to kind of bring everything together full circle with a question. In the midst of all your successes, achievements, and where you are today, how do you stay grounded? How do you stay grounded on a daily basis? And grounded can mean different things.
Yeah.
To you, what does staying grounded mean, and how do you cultivate that on a daily basis?
I think I stay grounded when I think about the word stewardship. Churches love this word, but stewardship is really simple. Steward is just being a manager of something for a season of time. It's not just a manager. It's coupled with a season of time. And I am a steward of my kids right now. I'm a steward of this business right now. I'm a steward of certain relationships or boards I sit on. At times when I mentor guys, I'm a steward, and I see it for a season of time. John Maxwell, who's a really prolific leadership author, speaker guy, he says that, like, you want to see the impact a leader has on an organization, pretend the leader has his hand in a bucket and his hand represents his leadership. Well, the minute he pulls his hand out of that bucket of water, what happens? All the water kind of fills in where the hand was. And I think the more real you can be about who you are and your place in time, and also that you recognize your responsibility is seasonal, not forever, that you just approach life a lot different. You become more intentional. You realize that each conversation actually does matter. You are more present. You're not flipping through social media trying to do 52 things. You realize that you're there for a finite time, and that drives me, that grounds me. And like I said, I'm far from perfect too. I mean, you'll find that I have my fair share of screw ups. I'm not a perfect leader. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect husband or a father either. But stewardship is something that really is ingrained deeply in me, and it only works again when it's coupled with a season of time. You're here doing the things you are for a season of time. And so you should be the best steward. And another word for steward is manager of the things that have been given to you.
Oh, God, that's so good. That season of time thing is powerful. It adds a sense of urgency.
That's right.
To where you can't just slack off now and then pick up being a manager later, because your time as that manager will pass. That's right. And I think that's a really powerful way to look at it, and a powerful motivator. You're right. Bryan, this is, God, what a way to wrap it up. To anybody who wants to learn more about you, belaysolutions.com.
That's right.
So, like I said, guys, I personally have an assistant from Belay, and Sarah is a rock star on our team. So if anybody else is looking for an assistant or a helping hand to come in and free up some time back into your life so that you can start to create and live a life that you're proud of, definitely check them out. And Bryan's book is also out at virtualculturebook.com. They're on Amazon, and yeah, like I said, I just picked it up and I can't wait to go through it. Bryan, again, man, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you, Raj.
If anybody in our audience wanted to reach out to you, do you have any places where they can go to get in touch or anything along those lines?
Absolutely. A good place to start would be virtualculturebook.com. That's a great place. And then on there are like all my social media links. And I'm all over Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I interact with everybody on social media all the time. And I've got a great team that helps me do that. But I am on there a ton. Just making sure that I'm interacting with folks when I'm not doing something that I should be very intentional about. So
perfect. So you're fun. So you're fun when you interact.
I try to be. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the book is a really great insight into me as a leader, I think, but also organization. And you know, I love engaging with people on social media, and the response has been really frankly overwhelming. I did not anticipate that this would actually resonate like it has. So I thank you for sharing this book with your audience. It means a lot.
No, absolutely. Like I said, the pleasure's all mine. I feel like I'm going to have to be going over these show notes pretty consistently for the next month or so. So again, Bryan, thank you so much. To everyone listening, this wraps up another episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. Again, I'm your host, Raj Jana, and until next time, stay grounded. Thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Stay Grounded podcast, brought to you by Java Press Coffee Company. My name is Raj, and I hope you found this interview helpful as you create your own ways to make daily happiness a priority. If you're interested in learning more about how your morning coffee can turn into a consistent source of joy in your life, visit www.javapress.com to learn how our products can help you do that, and use the coupon code PODCAST for 10% off your purchase. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Stay grounded.